As a teacher, it is going to be expected that you exude a high level of professionalism. We are in one of those careers where our expectations in terms of being a professional are set very high, not only inside the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. Being a professional not only means that you understand your curriculum, but it also means that you are setting the bar in terms of your ethical and moral standards. So you do have a legal and ethical responsibility for the safety and the welfare of the students in your classroom. So when a parent drops off their child, you are essentially taking the role of that child's parent once they enter into your room. Keep in mind too that you're going to probably be living in the same community as your students, and this means that you have to be very cautious and hold yourself accountable for all the decisions and actions that you make both in and outside of the school setting. Now, I know we've seen in the news a lot about teachers doing things outside the classroom, and then those are being brought into the classroom in terms of, should this teacher keep their job? Again, you just want to be cautious in terms of how you present yourself in the community, because again, you are going to be held to a much higher standard. So what are some ethical practices that we should follow as an educator? The National Education Association has published what they call the Code of Ethics, and these contain 2 principles that teachers should follow. Now, I'm not going to read everything that's on the screen for you because this week in Moodle I have linked the National Education Association, so I would encourage you to read the Code of Ethics. But the first principle is the commitment to the student. So you can see over there on the screen, these are things that you shall or shall not do in terms of the students in your class. And then the second principle is your commitment to the profession. So this is how you present yourself in terms of the educational profession, some things that you shall or shall not do. You also have legal responsibilities as an educator. These are both on the federal level and the state level. You're going to be looking into your legal responsibilities as a North Carolina teacher as part of your assignment this week. But what is on the screen here is what is the federal expectations that you follow. So the Individuals with Disabilities Act outlines the accommodations that students receive for students with disabilities. It is a federally mandated law that anything that's in a student's IEP or individual education plan, you have to follow and you have to give them those services. You are legally obligated to do so. The Every Student Succeeds Act replaced No Child Left Behind. I would encourage you to read that, and that sets the standards for student achievement, but it also sets the federal teacher qualifications. Teachers are also legally bound to follow FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. You are not allowed to share information about your students with anyone outside of the school building. You're not anybody in the community, as that violates a student's privacy. You also have a legal and ethical duty to report suspected child abuse. Now, my suggestion is go to your direct report, which would be your principal, but there's usually also a social worker either at each school, or there's also a social worker usually at the district level. Just like I mentioned in the previous slide, you are responsible for supervising the students in your classroom. Students should not be injured on your watch. Now, I do realize that accidents happen. Of course, accidents are going to happen. But that needs to be under your supervision. So you are responsible for each student in your class. For example, now your school is going to give you training on this, but just as an example, if the fire alarm rings, you should bring out with you a list of every student in your class, and you are required to be accountable that every student in your class is there. So just things like that. Just again, you're going to receive training on it, but just know you're responsible for the safety of your students. There are quite a few professional organizations that are out there to help teachers navigate our careers. One of the biggest ones is the National Education Association, that's the NEA. I would encourage you can join now even as a college student, but there's so many resources that are provided by the NEA, and that's just their whole goal is to improve teaching and learning. Another organization is the American Federation of Teachers, or the AFT. Now, North Carolina is one of the few states that we do not have a teachers union. But still, there's a lot of resources posted on their website that you can get. They provide a lot of links to professional development opportunities. Now, in North Carolina specifically, we have the North Carolina Association of Educators. When you get in the classroom, I would encourage you to join the NCAE. You've probably seen them many times on the news. So, Wear Red for Ed. You see them all the time that are promoting not only, legislation for our students, but legislation for teachers as well. Another thing that I have linked for you this week in Moodle, your specific subject area is going to have a professional organization, or probably multiple professional organizations. I was in an organization for middle school math teachers. So the link that I posted for you this week is going to give you a list of all the educational organizations, not only by grade level, but by subject area as well. So I would encourage you to go ahead and get familiar with the professional organization that's going to fit with your subject and your grade level. I did want to mention too, part of being a professional as an educator is committing yourself to constantly learning about the field of education. And I hope that's something that you would want to do anyway, but you are required, in order to get your professional license renewed, which occurs every 5 years, you do have to complete a certain amount of professional development. So you can see here, this is North Carolina requires that you complete 8 CEUs, that is continuing education units, or 80 clock hours of professional development in order for you to apply to get your license renewed. And I've also listed for you down here at the bottom the credits that are required for licensure renewal depending upon the grade level that you teach. There's a bunch of different ways for you to get professional development or to get CEUs. Most of those are provided locally. I know Carteret County does an excellent job of providing professional development opportunities for their students. You can also go to statewide or even nationwide, trainings or workshops. You can also take a class at a college or a university to get these CEUs. And you're going to be told about this, but I just want you to know up front that this is going to be a part of your whole entire teaching career. It's just that constant learning about your field, because education is constantly changing. You're also going to have support at your school system in what we call a professional learning community, or your PLC. So what your PLC is, this is a group of teachers that teach the same subject that you do. Now for some of you, I know for example you're interested in teaching art. You may be the only art teacher at your school, so you will be put into a professional learning community that is probably going to be county-wide, where you all get together and you discuss your content, you discuss how your content is going to be evaluated. Now I know for me, when I taught 7th grade math, I was put on a 7th grade team that included math, science, language arts, social studies. But when I got together with my PLC, I got together with other 7th grade math teachers, and that's when we get the time to sit down, we design our curriculum, we design our assessment, we talk about, we reflect, how did this assessment go? How did your students do? Oh, your students did really well on this particular content. My students didn't. Tell me what you did to teach differently than the way I did. You are never in an isolated bubble in education. There are always going to be other people there to help you. So I would encourage you to, be an active participant in your professional learning community. Great thing about education, there's other people that are always out there that are willing to share their ideas. So make sure you're open to that. All right, let's take a look at the assignment that you have for this week. There are 2 documents that you're going to need to read to complete this week's assignment. They are both posted at the top here, the North Carolina Professional Teaching Standards and the North Carolina Code of Ethics. Once you read those 2 documents, there are 3 short answer questions that I'm asking you to complete, Each one of those answers should be a minimum of 150 words, and I'm giving you guidelines for each one of the questions and what I expect that you answer there. And the document is going to be found here. I also wanted to point out that down at the bottom I have linked for you the NEA, the NCAE, and then as I mentioned previously, all the organizations, professional organizations by subject area and by grade level. If you have any questions at all about your assignment this week, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.